Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Travel Better Together, the podcast about group travel and travel innovation. Thank you for being here with us, Brian. How are you doing?
Hey, I am so excited to be here. Group travel is one of my favorite topics in the world to talk about, and I am delighted to do that with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you here today. It is my understanding that you've been working for 2 decades or so in group travel, right?
Yeah, believe it or not, I got my start in 2003. I was fresh out of university, and it was a couple months after graduation. I got hooked up with a travel magazine publisher in Lexington, Kentucky, and he had me on the road. I don't know, a couple months after I met him, and that was 21 years ago. And believe it or not, I'm still at the same company, and it's been a whirlwind and an absolute joy.
And that's beautiful. So would you say that's where your passion for group travel started?
My first real group travel experience was in middle school. My sixth grade class took a trip to Washington, D.C., as so many middle schoolers in the U.S. do. And it was maybe the greatest experience I had had in my young life to that point. I obviously, fell in love with DC. I was charmed by the history and, the importance and the meaning of so many of the places we visited. But even more than that, I realized I got to spend 4 days with all my friends from school. And we ate every meal together, and we shared a hotel room, and it was just magic. Uh, and so, what I was really, really struck by was the intense relationship building and community building experience of traveling in groups. And so, after that, I took every opportunity I could get for group trips through my educational years, and those things took me to places like Mexico and eventually other foreign destinations and certainly other places in the US as well. And so when I got the opportunity to start working for a magazine that was focused on group travel, I already had this inherent understanding of what it was and what made it special and a deep love for it. And that's only grown in the decades since.
Yeah. Your 2 decade career in the industry, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen?
Oh my gosh, it's been pretty seismic. I would say the main change was the switch over in generations from 2003, 2004, when I got started. The group tour market was still pretty heavily focused on the traditional senior citizen. Now, there were student tours,
Mhm.
like the sort of thing I had done, but many, many retail tour operators and other big tour groups were focused on retirees, senior citizens. That's certainly still an important part of the market. It's not the only part, but it's an important part of the market today. But 20 years ago, those senior citizens and retirees were still people from the World War II generation. In many cases, they had either fought in World War II, or their parents had, or they were alive during that time of the conflict. And of course, we think of these as people whose mindset was shaped by the Great Depression. And so as a result, they cared very deeply about value. They were always on the lookout for bargains. And the group travel market had been sort of shaped to cater to those interests. So as a result, group tours were very focused on high value, low price. How many things can we jam pack into an itinerary? How many places can we take you? How many meals can we include? And the consumer felt like the more that was included in that itinerary, the better value they were getting for their money. Another thing that was really important in that generation was that many, many of those women were homemakers their entire careers. They hadn't worked much outside of the home, and that meant they hadn't had many travel opportunities the way that young women today travel for work and have their own incomes and have plenty of disposable income and can travel whenever they want. Well, World War II generation women, many of them had never traveled much at all, or certainly not without their husbands. And so group travel gave them a safe place to travel, many times with other women of the same age group. And it lowered the barriers of entry to travel for people who had never really traveled before. So fast forward about 10 years from when I started, World War II generation is aging out of the market. Baby boomers are coming in. Baby boomers were super, super different. Baby boomers had a lot more disposable income than World War II generation did. So they cared less about value. They wanted great experiences. They wanted premium hotels, they wanted great restaurants, and they wanted bragging rights from the places they went. They loved the idea of doing things that were exclusive to their group, that, their friends who also went to the same destination on an individual trip didn't get to do. Another thing that baby boomers wanted was flexibility. They wanted more free time on the trips. They didn't want as many inclusions. They wanted to be able to show up, do some stuff with the group, and then do some stuff on their own. They wanted to be able to go to the restaurant that they had seen on TripAdvisor or on the Food Network. Maybe it wasn't included in the group's itinerary, but they wanted to do that. And so for 10 or 15 years, groups have really been, formed by the baby boomer generation. They have sort of refocused what group travelers want. And now, of course, we're not that far away from the baby boomer generation sort of starting to age out. And we're seeing the preferences of millennials and Gen Z again reshape what's happening in the group tour market. So there's an emphasis on really meaningful travel. There's an emphasis on kind of getting away from overexposed, overhyped, very touristy experiences and finding those real, meaningful, authentic things to do. We're also finding that millennials and Gen Z are hugely attracted to that communal experience in traveling with groups, much as I was when I traveled as a middle schooler. They're saying, boy, this is a great way to build friendships, to meet people who are not like me. In a generation where, loneliness and isolation is a bit of a problem, group travel presents a real opportunity to build relationships. And so we're seeing the industry sort of evolve in that direction in some really cool ways.
I think you make some fascinating points, Brian. And at the end that you were saying that group travel is a fascinating way. It's a great way for people to be less lonely, especially when the millennials and younger generations are having the toughest time in terms of isolation and in American history. And as you say, like, group travel is a great way to have like a magnificent time with friends or meet new people or with their doing things that you like, things that are passionate about, meeting places that you wanted to travel, and you're with friends all the way. Like that is a great idea, and that is a great point as well. And fascinating how the travel attitudes have changed throughout the generations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a great way to travel with people although that is a wonderful part of it. It's a great way to meet new people. People who are in some ways going to be like you because they have a inherent love of travel, or else they wouldn't be on the trip. They have a curiosity about the world, but in other ways they're going to be really different than you. They may have come from different places, a different ethnic background, religious background, cultural background, and you get chances to rub elbows with those sorts of people and build those cross-cultural friendships that our society so desperately needs right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think some of my closest friendships that I still have to this day came from group travel experiences. Like, those experiences really bonded our friendship and really got to know people who were completely new, but at the same time, we had great synchronicities in our friendship and our lives, and we still are great friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Now, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the most innovative changes that you've seen in the industry that will excite you about what's coming up?
Yeah, well, certainly technology has changed everything, right? When I first started, I went on tons of tours with everyday tour operators and their customers. And it was not uncommon before departure, I would get a thick envelope in the mail with a bunch of papers in it, right? Like a 12-page paper itinerary and, 7 or 8 pages of other information, what you need. And here's your packing checklist. And here, don't forget your passport, blah, 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 blah. And it's been years since I've seen one of those big packets. Of course, all that stuff is digital. All that stuff is online. What is exciting to me, though, is the opportunities that digital technology provide for customization. The inherent push and pull of group travel is between the communal experience and the individual experience. And a lot of travelers today really want both. They want to be able to have the group experience, have the community, make the friendships, but they still want to feel like that travel experience has been customized for them. So, what used to happen on group trips is everybody got on the bus together and everybody went to all 8 stops that day together. They all ate at the same restaurants. And, there might have been 2 or 3 of those experiences in that day that weren't your favorite thing. And you just had to go along with it. You had no other choice. That was part of the deal. But what technology is enabling today is for tour companies to customize experiences within that group tour. So you can give people options when they're signing up for your trip. Hey, do you want to, on this free day we can take you to a spa where we've prearranged a spa package for you, or we can take you bungee jumping, or there's this great history museum in town, or we also have arranged a winemaker experience at a local vineyard. And you get to choose which one you want to do. It's still all included in the price. It's still all packaged together, and there will be people from the group with you. But we have arranged it now so that we're going to get your transportation to any of those places you need to be, and then we're all going to come together at the end of the day and share our experiences and talk about them. To me, that's kind of the best of both worlds. It's the community experience and also the flexibility.
I completely agree. And customization also allows tour operators to be more profitable as well, because travelers are more willing to pay for personalized experiences. And technology now enables tour operators to do that much more easily. As you say, like within the same group, you can differentiate, you can let people choose their own kind of experiences depending on what their preferences are, right? You
Yeah.
can help them achieve their dreams because you as a tour operator understand your travelers better than ever.
Yeah. Another thing that's really exciting to me, from the travel vendor side, is the power of automation. A lot of the people that listen to our podcast, Gather and Go, or read our magazines, The Group Travel Leader, they are people that own tour companies. Many of them are solopreneurs or they're mom and pop tour companies or very small organizations. And for years, they've been the ones stuffing envelopes, printing that 12-page packet and putting it in an envelope and mailing it. There's so much that can be done with automation now for those people. Improve their marketing, improve their conversion rates, improve their click-through, remove so much of the busy work, automate, payments and reminders and follow-up and surveys. It's just breathtaking. Yeah, it takes some, there's a learning curve to it. It takes some setup, but once you get it set up, boy, you can automate so much of your back office operations, which leaves you as the trip planner more time to do what you love, which is actually go out and travel with your community and spend less time, sending follow-up emails and trying to chase payments and get people to mail you a check and then take the check to the bank and all that stuff that travel vendors did for so long.
Exactly, exactly. I think that's the reason I started as an entrepreneur in group travel, because I saw that many of the things that have been done in the industry by experts and veterans could be automated so that we could help them like be their best version of themselves, do what they love best, which is changing people's lives through travel experiences, right? No within the bureaucracy of collecting feedback, collecting payments, reminding people where they have to go, waking them up, and the such, right? There's a lot of things that can be automated now so that people can be more human.
Absolutely. And, there's something in the entrepreneurial journey. You may experience this soon if you haven't already, where many people start in business as entrepreneurs because they are very good at doing a thing and they love doing that thing. And then they find pretty soon that their days are consumed not by the thing they love and they're good at, but by all the other administrative tasks and business support and whatever it is, marketing and admin that it takes to make a business work. And I feel like anything we can do to minimize the busy work and maximize the time spent on the core skill that you love, boy, that's a win for everybody.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And technology and digitization has come late to group travel. Group travel have been historically late adopters of technology and innovation. So right now it is a prime time for group travel leaders to be adopting technology, because also after the pandemic, the consumers are more digital. Like
Yeah,
their behaviors are more digital, and they have larger digital expectations than they did even before. So now it is not only an opportunity, but also a necessity more than ever for tour operators to go digital and automate all of these operations.
Yeah.
with technology, right?
Yeah, and not only is it important to do, I think the new generation of tour operators is simply going to demand those tools. Uh, One of the things that I'm really excited about is there are a ton of millennial and even some Gen Z, but a lot of millennial entrepreneurs getting into the group tour market. Some of them are buying out older people who had established tour companies. Many more of them just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to start my own tour company and see how it goes. Those people, they don't really have any memory of the days when we kept records by hand, handwritten on paper or in some Excel spreadsheet somewhere, and you sent faxes and snail mail and all those things. They are expecting digital tools. They're looking for digital tools. Some of them maybe have not found the digital tools they've needed and have decided to build it themselves. But yeah, in today's world, if you're trying to do business in the digital world with analog tools, you're going to get really frustrated. You're going to fall behind, and sooner or later you're going to give up.
Yeah, yeah. You either catch up or are left behind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask you, Brian, what advice will you give to travel planners precisely who are just starting to organize their first group trips, or are starting to mount their group travel companies?
Yeah, absolutely. There are three things I would tell them. Number one is focus on what you are best at. And that's going to be different for different people. Some people getting into group travel are getting into it because they have magnetic personalities. They have 1,000 friends. I mean, literally, 1,000 friends. And they know a lot of those people would love to go on trips with them. In fact, that many of those people already do go on trips with them. So they say, hey, I think I can turn this into a business, or I can make this a program that is a lot of fun and allows me to travel free, and that sort of thing. For people like that, your core competency is relationships, and it's charisma, and it's keeping the party going and making people feel included and like part of your tribe. If that's what you're great at, focus on that and outsource the nuts and bolts of the travel business, building your itinerary, planning the routing of where you're going, figuring out which hotel is right for your group, chartering a motor coach if you need that, putting together group flights, figuring out where your group is going to eat. If that's not what you're good at, let somebody else handle it for you. There is an entire ecosystem of people who are really, really good at the logistics of travel who can help you with that. Whether it's a retail tour operator, it can be a lot of tour operators do white labeling. So they'll do all the back end work for you and let you put your own name on it, and your customers never know that you were not the person that made those arrangements. There are also people, in different cities around the world who are what we call receptive tour operators, who all they do is package their hometown and make it super easy for groups to come in. So work with a retail tour operator, work with a white labeler, work with a receptive operator. Let somebody do the stuff that you're not good at so that you can focus on what you are good at. On the flip side, if you're really good at logistics and you don't necessarily have those personal skills to attract a ton of people, you need to partner with somebody who understands marketing really well, or who does have that kind of magnetic personality, or does know how to draw people in. Because you can put together the best trip in the world, but if you can't attract people, it's not going to work. On the other hand, you can attract tons of people, but if your trips are subpar, they're not going to travel with you again. So the first thing is, focus on what you are good at. The second thing is build relationship, build relationship, build relationship. You cannot have too many relationships. This industry especially is hugely dependent on relationships, not only getting people to travel with you, but also knowing who you can trust to supply you on your trips. That means trusting destination representatives, trusting transportation vendors, trusting hotel vendors, hotel brands, trusting back end software vendors. Anybody that you're doing business with, you need to have a relationship. The best way to do that in the group travel business is to attend the events where people get together in person to do business. There's all kinds of them. They're in the US, they're in foreign countries. And I have to tell young entrepreneurs all the time, I know you market online, I know you sell online, I know you're used to a completely digital existence, but you're never going to reach your potential in group travel unless you go to some of these face-to-face events. Sit down and have conversations with partners go out for coffee, go out for a cocktail. That's where you build those relationships to where if something goes wrong for one of your groups, you have somebody's cell number in that destination, at that hotel company, at that transportation company. You can text them at 10 at night and they are going to respond because they have a relationship with you. You can't build that online, but you can build it through relationship building. And then the final thing I would tell them to do, and this is a shameless plug, is we have so many free resources to help people launch their group travel program or take it to the next level. We have been covering group travel for more than 30 years, and everything we offer is free. So I would direct people to our website, grouptravelleader.com, and a special landing page on that site that we've put together that is just called Start Here. That's at grouptravelleader.com/start. It's where you're going to find all our free downloads. You're going to find some of our very most helpful articles, great podcast episodes, other ways that you can get in touch with us, even opportunities to come with us on some familiarization tours that we facilitate throughout the year. It is an incredible resource. Every time people land on that page, they say, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome! I'm downloading 3 ebooks and signing up to 2 different mail lists because I need all this information." And hey, it's free. And you know what? Try it. If you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe. But I'm willing to bet you won't once you start getting into the information.
I'll bet on that too, Brian. For sure. Yes, check out Start Here on the Group Travel Leaders website. It's filled with great resources, and especially if you're just starting out your group travel company and your first group trips, you'll find invaluable knowledge in there. There's another question I wanted to ask you, Brian. You that have met with an innumerable amount of travel leaders, group travel leaders. What are some of the commonalities you see within those travel leaders, group travel leaders?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, number one, there's the love of travel, right? I mean, that's a given. Number two, the ones that do it really well have a high emotional intelligence. Sometimes you hear that referred to as EQ, as opposed to IQ, it's EQ because it's emotional intelligence. Now, this goes for both the people who are great, at keeping the party going and attracting friends, as well as the people who are really good at back end logistics. Either way, you really need to have a sense for what's going on in someone's mind. What is motivating them to travel? Because if you take a group of 20 people out, there's a good chance that they have 20 different reasons for coming on your trip. One of those people may be struggling with loneliness and is just looking for a chance to make some friends. One of those people may have always dreamed about going to that one destination that you're going to. Say you're taking a trip to France and maybe their father or grandfather died on the beaches of Normandy during D-Day. Well, to that person, the visit to Normandy is going to be hugely significant. It's the most important thing on the trip. As the trip leader, you need to be clued into that so that you can make sure you honor that time for them, that you give them space if they need space, or you celebrate them and their family sacrifice if they're the kind of person that would appreciate being celebrated and commemorated in that way. If they're the person who needs that friendship, you need to have the EQ to recognize, I need to spend a little bit more time with this person and help make sure that they are making friends with others in the group. If you have people on the trip that are just looking for an adventure, you need to make sure that you are connecting them with some opportunities to maybe go off after hours and visit an establishment that's not on the itinerary and may not be where all the tourists go, but where they're really going to have a great local experience. All sorts of things like that. The best group travel leaders, they know their travelers. They can empathize, they can understand where people are coming from and what they want, and they understand when people aren't happy and look for ways to fix problems during the trip, on the trip. And I tell people, when someone complains to you about a trip on the trip, it sounds like a pain, it's actually a huge opportunity. Because if you can show that you hear them and understand them, you empathize, and then you solve the problem during the trip, they're going to become customers for life. It's a huge way to build loyalty.
Those were excellent tips, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing them with our audience.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Last question, Brian. What are some of the most common challenges that you see that group travel leaders face?
Yeah, well, the answer is really different now than it would have been 5 years ago. Uh, COVID, of course, changed the entire landscape. So, we can talk about sort of micro challenges that are very current now. They may change. And then we can talk about, the macro challenges that are sort of built in and they're systemic and take bigger thinking. On the micro side, staffing still continues to be a big challenge in many destinations. There are a lot of places around the world where service workers have not come back to pre-COVID levels. And so I'm hearing from a lot of tour operators and group travel leaders that, the hotel that they always stayed at in New York City is no longer interested in taking group reservations because they don't have the staff perhaps to serve that group. They don't have the bellman to deliver the bags to the rooms, or they don't have enough wait staff in the restaurant to serve that entire group dinner all at one time. Restaurants in general are really challenging right now. Restaurants that used to do great group business are now saying, I don't have the tables for you because I don't have the servers. I can't seat a group of 50 all at once. I just can't do it.
Wow.
So group travel leaders are having to get really creative about how they cover some of the basics, things like meals and basic service. Of course, the other thing is inflation is just beating the wind out of everybody. Travel prices have outpaced even other goods in the economy in terms of how quickly they are going up. We're seeing some signs in 2024 that prices may have started to hit a ceiling, where consumers are starting to say, okay, that's it. I'm not paying that. Even big companies like Disney, the Disney parks, are having to start discounting again off those record high prices they were setting in 2023 and the early part of 24. So I'm hopeful that some moderation in pricing might make some things easier for tour planners. The problem with tour planners is they have to plan so far out in advance because it takes time to market a tour, package a tour. So many of the big companies, it's middle of 2024 right now, they're locking in their 2026 pricing right now.
Wow.
And they have to set a price, they have to publish it, put it on their websites, or the ones that still do print catalogs, put it in the catalog. And then a vendor might come along and say, hey, prices have gone up. Sorry. And that tour operator has to make a hard decision. They can't raise the price of the tour. So are they going to, come out of pocket and pay that vendor the extra money they want? Are they going to try to find a new vendor behind the scenes and scramble and hope it gets done before the trip goes off? Or are they going to fight back against the vendor and say, no, we have a contract and you're going to honor the contract or we're going to court, and then you have litigation expenses. So that's a big challenge right now. I'm hopeful that it'll change, but of course, who knows when, and who knows, what factors are going to be in play. So those are some of the micro things. The macro things is always the pull and tug between individual and group experiences. That's not a problem that's ever going to be solved, I think, but it's a tension that you manage, and you manage it well, and you bring in those tech tools and you find creative solutions, and hopefully, give people sort of a different paradigm to look at that through. Another problem that is kind of big picture is that we have been through, I don't know, 4 or 5 different instances of the media proclaiming that group tourism is dead. It happened when the baby boomers, when World War II generation aged out. It started to happen pre-COVID when people said, "Oh, baby boomers will never get on a bus." It happened during COVID. I can't tell you how many articles I read in the height of the pandemic saying, "Well, this is definitely the end of the tour bus. This is totally the end of group travel." Well, it's not. It hasn't been, but we're always fighting this perception that group travel is dead and dying, or that it's too restrictive, or that it's only for old people, or whatever the perception in media is. Now, right now, we're in a time where the media is actually giving us some good attention, and more young people and influential people are saying, "I went on a group trip and it was fantastic." So it's a good moment. The tide will certainly change, as it always does with media, but there is a perception issue that group travel planners always have to overcome. And the way to do that is just through really smart and insightful communication, messaging, vision casting, really getting in people's heads why you should want to take a group, inspiring them to want to go with a group instead of traveling on the road.
That's a great point. Great points, Brian.
Thanks.
Great points. I think, well, I agree with you. I think the Gen X generation Sorry for the redundancy,
Yeah.
is quite excited about group travel. I've read some articles about it, and they have a generational positive attitude towards group travel because, as you say, group travel is a great way to start traveling when you are not really familiar with travel. Like, it's an easy way to go to Europe and get to travel through a bunch of different countries and cities and cultures without knowing yourself where exactly to go, where to stay, where to eat, and such. Everything is taken care of, so you can only have fun. I think that's immensely attractive to the Gen X travelers.
Yeah, and many of them are using group travel as a starting point for exploring a place. So they take that group trip to Italy, for instance, because they don't know where to start. And then on that trip, they say, oh man, Naples was really amazing. And, of course, I need to spend more time in Venice. And gosh, I really need a whole week to soak in Rome. So now that I've been here once, I know where I want to come back to. They are not necessarily going to go back on another group tour, but they've seen it and they're comfortable with the culture now and they understand the currency. And now they have the confidence to go do that themselves or bring back some friends. So it's a great intro to traveling to places that you're unfamiliar with.
I completely agree. And that was the experience for me.
Yeah.
I traveled in groups a bunch through Europe, for example. That made me really comfortable then going by myself back and visiting those specific destinations with more time because I already was familiar with the culture and the cities and the transportation system and the languages and the such, right? Like it is a great introduction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Brian, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It has been an amazing interview. It's a pleasure. And I think you've made some great comments and have shared some great advice that will immensely help our audience be better group travel leaders.
Well, it's been my pleasure. I always enjoy getting to spend some time with you, Diego, and I love talking travel. And I hope I have been able to help you and your community get better at what they do.
Thank you so much. I'm sure you did. Well, it was a pleasure, Brian.